Let's see how to send emails in Nestjs using only the node mailer package. I will go ahead and create a new project using the Nest CLI. So I'll say Nest new. I'll give it a name, my Nest. I'll select npm and wait for the installation to complete. Now I can go into the project folder, cd my Nest. Let me go ahead and bring in the node mailer package by running npm install node mailer. Also, I want to keep the credentials for sending this email, the password, the username, etc. in a .env file. So let me go ahead and bring in the Nestjs config module. This is just for the environment variable files. Okay, I can now go into the project in my code editor. I want to have the codes for sending out the emails in a different module. You can use the app module if that's what you want. But let me create a new module. So I'm going to say Nest generate, let me actually generate a resource called mailer. And wait. This is going to be for REST API. Would you like to generate CRUD endpoints? No. Okay, so I'll go back to the code. Now we have this mailer module. There will be nothing inside the service and the controller, but let's add some codes. Before we get started, I want to import the config module for the .env. So I will go to app.module.ts. In the import array, the mailer module that I just generated has been imported, but let me also import the config module.forroot. So with this import statement, by default, it's going to expect a .env file at the root of the project. So let me go ahead and create a .env file. .env. Inside here, we are going to put our email credentials. Over to the mailer service class, let's define some methods. The first one I want to have, this is going to give us an object of the mail transport, the thing we can just call send mail on to send out the email. So let me call this mail transport. And I can say const trans. Actually, you can get this from the documentation, something of this nature, but we are going to change things to our own values. So it says transport is this. Make sure to import node mailer. Import node mailer from node mailer. Actually, this import like this, I noticed has some issues. So I'm going to say import all as node mailer from node mailer. Now we get some issue with TypeScript. So let's add the types for node mailer because we are using TypeScript. I will go to the terminal and say npm install dev dependency types node mailer. And that should resolve that. I'm going to format this. And at the end, I want to return the transporter. Okay, so what are these values? These values are your own specific values. I'm going to show you an example using mailtrap. Let me go to mailtrap.io. So you could be using maybe Google email service or whatever email service you are using. What you need to do is to go to your email service provider and get your SMTP credentials. For example, you can use Mailtrap, which provides you a test, some test environment and credentials. For this demonstration, I will go ahead and use my Mailtrap credentials. I'll click on Show Credentials here. The host is SMTP something. So. But we don't want to hard code those credentials here in the code. That was the reason for the env file. We are going to come back to this file in a moment. So let me go to .env and define those values. So here I'm going to have mail host, which is this. Then we are going to have the port, mail port. We are going to have the username, mail user, and mail password. We'll go ahead and copy my credentials over. For the port, I'm going to use 465 among these options. So port is 465. The user I just copied my credentials, and then the password also copied from here. Another thing I want to have is that for the emails I'm going to send out, if no from field is specified, it is going to use a default I will define here. So for example, a default like no reply at your website.com, whatever. So I'm going to say default email or mail from to be something like so info@example.com. Another thing is the name that is associated with that email. This is optional, but let me add app name to be the application name. That should be the sender. All right, with these credentials I can go over to the service class now. In the constructor, I'm going to inject or let Nestjs inject the config service for me. I'm going to say private read only config service. Config service imported from the config module. And I'll come over here and replace these values with the items from the .env, that is using the config service. So config service.get, this is going to be, just type hinting it, string, and then the field, the env variable is mail underscore host. I'm going to repeat this for the other fields but change the values. This is mail port, but this is going to be a number, I guess. That's why the error. Because I'm in a local environment, development environment, I'm going to change the SSL to false, and the user and password change to my own values as well. So this is going to be user, and this is going to be password, mail password. All right, that should be it for the transport. The next method here is going to be the method for sending out the emails. So I'm going to have, this is going to be async send email. This is going to take some parameter. Let me call it DTO, and I will go ahead and define the type. Let me create a file here. Should I call it mail.interface.ts? I don't know, whatever. Here I'm going to export a type for that DTO. So let me call it send email DTO to be equal to that. This is going to have the fields like who is the same sender of the email. Well, we are going to use the default from .env if this field is not supplied, so it's going to be optional. It's going to be of type string, or better still, it can be of type known as address, which I'm going to import from node mailer. So address is going to take name and address. This is just a name associated with the email, and this is the email address. And then we are going to have the recipient. This is going to be, these are the people that will receive the email. It can be one email, it can be multiple. To make room for multiple, I'm going to say that this is going to be address array. can be one, right? And then the subject of the email, this is going to be a string. We are going to send email, HTML email. So this is going to be HTML string, and the text version of that HTML, let me make it optional. This is also going to be a string. This is going to be HTML. This is going to be a text version of the same HTML email, but it's optional. And finally, for a situation whereby in the HTML we want to replace some values. For example, something that can say, "Hi John, your lucky number is 37," and for someone else it's going to be a different name and different lucky number. We can't have a hard-coded value solving that kind of problem. So for this, we are going to have some placeholder in the HTML that we can substitute programmatically. So let me call this placeholder sub or replacement. Placement. This is going to be object, key string, and the value string. Alright, so I can go over to the mailer service and say that this DTO is going to be of type send email DTO. Next, let me grab the values from the DTO. This equals DTO. Inside there we have the from, and we have the recipients, the subject, the HTML, and we have the replacement for the placeholders. Now I can go ahead and make use of this transport. I'm going to say const transport to be equal to this dot mail transport. With that transport, the object, we can try to send an email. So const result to be equal to await, not this, transport dot send mail. The send mail is going to take an object of type mail.options. So let me come up here and have the options, const options to be of type mail from node mailer dot options. For the options, we are going to have from. If the from field is not supplied, remember that this is optional. We are going to use the default from the .env. So I'm going to say that this is going to be from the supplied field. If not supplied, we are going to, let me copy this thing, I'm going to modify it. If not supplied, we are going to say that the name, that is the person sending it, the name associated with the email, and then address. We use the values from the .env file. In this case, I have this for the address, and then I have this for the name. This is for the name. Let me fix this prettier issue. Next, we have to, this is going to be the recipient. We have the subject and HTML. Then I can go ahead and pass this option to the core of send mail here. Let me just return this result to remove that warning there. And for error, I will just put in the console.log error in case there's any error. All right, we are going to come back to this placeholder thing in a moment. For now, let me try to send an email. So I'll go to the mailer controller. Let me have a method here called send mail. This is going to just return await this dot service dot send email. The send email is going to expect an argument. So let's have that DTO here of type send email DTO. This can optionally take from, as already explained. It's going to be an object with name associated with the email. So let's say Lucy, I don't know, whatever. And then the address is going to be lucy@example.com. The next thing is the recipient. This is going to be an array of one or multiple recipients. So for this, let me just type it. We say that the name is John Doe and address is john@example.com. Let me have another one, or one is fine. And then we have the subject of the email, lucky winner. And then we have the HTML. Let me have a paragraph here. Hi John, your lucky number 22 won you $1 million. Okay, and close the paragraph. Open the last one and say cheers. Let me make this bold, saying strong and strong. Finally, I can pass the DTO here. Okay, let's start the server and try to send an email. We have a little dependency issue. What I need to do, because this mailer module is making use of the config module, so I'm going to import it here, config module, and the error should go away. Now I'll head over to Postman and call the endpoint to send email. This is localhost 3000/mailer. Let me go back to the controller and change something. So this is going to be a post request to mailer/send email. Okay, so back to Postman. I will send the request. It is sending the request, the email. Here we get the response. Looks like it was successful. And if I check the inbox now, you can see that we got the email. The sender is lucy@example.com, and the recipient is John with the email body as we defined. So let's imagine that we want to send this email to someone else. Let's try someone else. Let's say the recipient is Anderson Wu, and the email is Anderson. The problem here is that we have a hard-coded HTML. And this is the use case for the template we talked about, where we can have some placeholder, like placeholder here, like name, and then when we send the email, it's going to be substituted automatically. By the way, for this test, let me test the case when we don't supply the from address. It's going to use the default we have here, which is info@example.com. So I'm going to send the email again, and then to inbox. If I refresh, you can see we got the email from info@example.com, Zestmade, and the recipient is Anderson, and the body reads John, lucky number 22 and $1 million. So talking about substituting these values programmatically, what I'm going to do is to use this answer from Stack Overflow. I'm going to copy this function and modify it according to my use case. So I'll copy the function and let me go to the mailer service and paste here. We don't need this document.get element something stuff. I'm going to replace this with some values that we come as parameter. We take HTML string. So this is going to be HTML string. Then for data, that is the replacement. Let me just call it replacement. This is going to be record object of key string value string. So here I'm going to say replacement and replacement. Format this annoying stuff. Now I can use this template here for HTML. Let me remove from here. I'm going to say that HTML to be equal to if dto.replacement, if the replacement is applied, that means we have some fields in that HTML that needs to be substituted for. I'm going to say that HTML is this this dot template dto.html and dto.replacement. Otherwise we just say dto.html, nothing to replace. Now let me just remove this. This is fine. I will go back to the controller. Let's try to use that replacement. Instead of hard coding John here, we can have at request at body, from the request body, let's say body to be record string and string. Then this body is what we are going to supply as replacement to be the body. Then for the HTML, I'm going to say hi. According to this template stuff we are using, you have the replacement between the percentage signs like this. If you want to change it to use curly braces, you can see how you can do it here. So I'm going to leave it at the percentage signs. I will say hi name, your lucky number is, and I'll put number. I'll just leave the other ones, right? But you get the point. Then in the request body, let's do another test. This time we are going to supply the name. This is going to be Mary Lucas, and this is Jason, and then the number, let's say 777. Okay, so let's try this and send the request. Now we check what we have in the inbox. So that works. You can see that it says hi Mary Lucas, your lucky number is 777. Okay guys, this brings us to the end of this lesson. I hope it makes sense. Until next time, enjoy coding.